My sister stole my identity and used it to take a $90,000 loan. The funds to those old copies of my ID. My sister, Vanessa. She'd borrowed them once to help apply for a rental place months ago. I remember trusting her like a fool. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up. Instead, I got a casual text 10 minutes later. "Hey, I'm super busy today. Can we talk tomorrow?" That's when I knew she was hiding something. Because Vanessa never said no to a call, unless she was lying. I drove to her house that night, unannounced. Her husband opened the door, confused. "Andrea?" "She's out with friends." But my eyes caught something behind him. A brand new leather couch set. And a flat-screen TV still with the plastic on. $90,000 made sense now. When she finally came home, her face turned white. "Andrea, wow, what are you doing here?" she stammered. I could feel her guilt crawling through her voice. "I'm here because someone took a $90,000 loan using my ID," I said coldly. "And I think that someone lives right here." She laughed nervously. "What? That's crazy. You really think I would do that?" But she made her biggest mistake next. She tried to play dumb about something only the real borrower would know. She said, "Well, maybe the person used that old address of mine on Maple Street." I hadn't mentioned any address. My hands tightened. My voice dropped. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "do you have any idea what happens when someone commits federal loan fraud?" She blinked fast. "Why are you saying it like that?" "Because," I whispered, leaning forward, "you just committed it against a federal agent." Her smile disappeared. Silence. And in that frozen moment, she realized she wasn't talking to her sister anymore. She was talking to the investigator who could destroy her life with one report. Vanessa's tears didn't move me, not after what she'd done. She sat there shaking, mumbling excuses. "I just needed a little help, Andrea. I was gonna pay it back. You make good money. I thought you'd understand." Understand? She'd stolen my identity, ruined my credit, and risked my career. And she thought I'd understand. I stood there silent, letting her dig her own grave. "Vanessa," I said, my tone steady, "you didn't just take money. You took my trust. You took my record. And you forged federal documents. You realize how deep you're in, right?" Her husband looked horrified. "Wait, what's happening?" he asked, turning toward her. Vanessa's eyes darted around like a trapped animal. "It's nothing. Just a misunderstanding." But I'd already pulled out the printed loan papers from my file. I placed them on the table. "These are the signatures," I said, pointing at the initials. "This is your handwriting. I compared it with the birthday cards you wrote for Mom. You even used the same loop on the letter V." Her husband's jaw dropped. "Vanessa, tell me you didn't," she broke. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I didn't think you'd find out." I leaned closer. "I find out everything. It's literally my job." There was a long silence, only her sobs echoing in the room. Then, in a tone I hadn't used since my early cases, I said, "I'm giving you one chance. Either you fix this or I file the report tomorrow morning. And if I file it, it won't just be you going down. It'll be both of you for co-conspiracy." Her husband's face turned pale. "She used my email to apply," he said suddenly. Oh my God. Now that was the twist I didn't expect. My sister wasn't alone in this. I crossed my arms. "So it's teamwork now?" He started stammering. "She told me it was just temporary, Andrea. That you agreed to help us out." I laughed bitterly. "You think I'd ever agree to a $90,000 fraud? You two just made my job a lot more personal." Vanessa grabbed my hand. "Please, Andrea. I'll pay it back. I'll fix it. Don't ruin my life." I looked her straight in the eyes. "You already ruined mine." Then I stood up, opened my phone, and typed something in my notes. A name, a time, a location. She looked at me terrified. "What are you doing?" "Logging evidence," I said. "Because from this moment, everything you say is going on record." Her breath hitched. "Wait, you're not really going to—" I cut her off. "You should have thought of that before you faked my signature." I walked toward the door, but before leaving, I turned back and said one line that made her crumble. "You didn't steal from your sister, Vanessa. You stole from a federal agent who knows exactly how to make you pay. My heart sank as the bank officer spoke. Ms. Rivera, the system flagged another $25,000 loan attempt under your identity. Same credentials, different IP address. Different IP address? That meant someone else had my data now. I called Vanessa instantly. She answered, voice trembling. Andrea, please tell me you didn't report it yet. Vanessa, I snapped, did you share my documents with anyone else? Her silence was my answer. I could literally hear her breathing hard. I didn't mean to, I swear. It was just supposed to be between me and Ryan. Ryan? I interrupted. Who the hell is Ryan? My friend's boyfriend, she stuttered. He said he could help get us approved faster. I sent him the files. I didn't know he'd actually use them. I closed my eyes, fighting the rage boiling inside me. My sister had handed my federal identity to some random scammer. Now I wasn't just dealing with family betrayal. This was a criminal network. I raced back to my office. Within an hour, I had full access to the internal fraud tracking system. Every trace of the new application was there. The IP led to a local cafe, one that had popped up in multiple fraud alerts in recent months. That's when I realized something deeper. This wasn't random. It was an organized ring, and my sister had just connected herself and me to the center of it. By 5 p.m., I had enough data to open an internal case file, but technically, as a victim, I couldn't lead the investigation, unless I kept my role off the record. I called my colleague Mark, someone I trusted like family. I need you to run a silent trace for me, I said. Don't log my name anywhere in the report, Mark knew my tone. How bad is it? Bad enough that if this leaks, my career's over, I replied. He sighed. Send me the files. Hours later, he called back. Andrea, this Ryan guy? He's not just some friend's boyfriend. He's been flagged before. Part of a loan fraud group in 3 states. I clenched my jaw. And my sister? She's in deep. Her email shows up in 2 other loan documents tied to his group. If the Bureau finds this before you clean it, she's going down with him. My chest tightened. Vanessa had no idea what she'd gotten into. But as furious as I was, I couldn't let her end up in prison. That night, I drove to her house again. She opened the door with swollen eyes, clearly hadn't slept. Vanessa, I said quietly, I found out who Ryan really is. Her lips trembled. He said he'd help us. I didn't know. I cut her off. You gave a known fraudster my identity and now he's using it to take out more loans. If I don't stop him tonight, we both go down, she gasped. What do you mean, both? Because the system thinks we're working together. Her eyes widened in horror. Andrea, what are we going to do? I took a deep breath. You're going to help me catch him. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't let anyone see it. Money was already moving. The kind of move that leaves a paper trail and people with itchy hands celebrating. I told Vanessa to sit down and listen. You told him everything, I said. Passwords, copies, the answers to my security questions. He used them like a key, she sobbed. I thought he'd help. I didn't think he'd actually take the loans. Please, Andrea, help me fix this. I stared at her for a long beat, then spoke slow. You already broke us both. Now you're going to help me fix it. For your sake and mine. First, I needed to stop the transfer. I called Mark and gave him precise orders. Freeze the outgoing wire, flag the receiving account, and set a silent trace on every endpoint Ryan touched. No official logs that could tie back to me. Mark replied, I'll need you at the bank in 10 minutes. We'll pretend you're just another victim. At the bank, I kept my voice low. The manager's smile vanished when I handed over the file. We can put a hold, she said, but only with a fraud affidavit. I signed the paper like a calm person. Inside, I was a storm. Mark's trace lit up my phone with dozens of tiny breadcrumbs. 3 transfers, a shell company, a pickup request at a storage unit 5 miles away. Whoever ran this ring was sloppy enough to leave pieces and smart enough to cover them quickly. We raced to the storage facility. My badge stayed in my coat pocket, folded and hidden. Vanessa followed, pale as a sheet, whispering apologies and promises. She clutched my arm like a lifeline. I let her, for now. At the gate, a delivery van idled. Two men in hoodies unloaded a stack of boxes. One of them had a phone in his hand and kept glancing up as if expecting a signal. My gut said this was it. I told Mark to call in backup, not officially, and we positioned ourselves on opposite sides of the lot. Vanessa's eyes were fixed on the van like a woman watching her own funeral. Then Ryan walked out from behind the unit, smirking like he'd already won. He was younger than I pictured, with sharp eyes and a confidence that made me sick. Vanessa's head dropped. He spotted us and quickened his step. "Thought you could use another friend, Van?" he said, sneering. She tried to speak, but I cut in. "You used my sister's trust to steal her life, Ryan. Hands where I can see them." He laughed and took a step toward Vanessa. That move told me everything. He thought fear would shut her up. I watched his hand drop toward his pocket. For a heartbeat, I imagined the worst. Then Mark moved like a shadow and slammed a hand on Ryan's wrist. A second later, two men I didn't know but who smelled like justice tackled him to the ground, but Ryan's grin didn't fade. And that's when the next twist hit. As his phone skidded across the gravel, it lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Drop him. New plan tonight. Your cut doubles." I picked up the phone and opened the message. The text included a name I didn't expect, not one of the street-level scammers, but someone who ran a charity my parents volunteered for. The charity name flashed on the screen like a cold neon sign. Vanessa screamed, No, he's lying." I didn't believe her. The charity had always been a soft spot for our family, a place we held sacred. If that name was involved, this was bigger than a random ring. It meant people we trusted were using that trust to launder money and hide loans. Mark looked at me and said, "You wanted this personal, Andrea. You're in the middle now." My throat tightened. There was betrayal in my blood. But the betrayal I saw now ran deeper than Vanessa or Ryan. It threaded through people who smiled at church bake sales and signed donation checks. I realized then that fixing my credit was the small battle. The bigger war would expose the faces behind the smiles and ruin lives I never expected to touch. My blood ran cold hearing that message. It wasn't my mom. It was a warning, calm, rehearsed, confident. Someone powerful was pulling the strings, and they'd just made it personal. Mark looked at me. "You're not going to back off, are you?" I shook my head. Not a chance. That night, I met with an internal task force, off the record. We built a full case file with every trace of the loans, every fake document, every connection Ryan's group had to that so-called charity. Vanessa sat quietly in the corner, terrified, realizing the monster she'd accidentally fed. Within 48 hours, federal warrants were signed. The charity office was raided. Behind the smiling board members were layers of fraud, stolen identities, forged signatures, and over $3.2 million in illegal loans. Ryan's crew was just the surface. When it was over, Vanessa approached me outside the courthouse. Her voice broke. "Andrea, I don't deserve your forgiveness." I looked at her, my sister, trembling under the weight of her choices. "You don't," I said softly, "but you do deserve a second chance to make it right. Start by rebuilding what you destroyed, your own name." She nodded, tears streaming. For the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Regret. As for me, I filed my final report and walked out of the office that day with my head high. My name was cleared, the fraud ring was gone, and the same skills I used to catch strangers had finally brought justice home. And that voicemail threat? We traced it too. It came from the charity's director, who's now serving 8 years in federal prison. Sometimes revenge doesn't come from anger. It comes from justice served quietly, with proof, patience, and a badge. Because when they stole from me, they thought they were fooling a sister. They forgot I was a federal agent trained to find the truth.